Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and Integrity doing an Ancient Warrior deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is an amazing deck, especially with the new support. We got a Dimension Force for this deck, which is just absolutely insane, being two new amazing cards, and the new spell card is just absolutely insane. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon, along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing two copies of Ancient Warrior Savage, which is a great new card for this deck. That while you control a level 7 or higher Ancient Warrior monster, your opponent must pay 400 life points to activate cards or effects. You can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. That if this card is normal or special summon, then you can add a level 7 or higher Ancient Warrior monster or an Ancient Warrior continuous spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And if a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard except during the damage step, then you can target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it, and if you do, you get to draw a card, which is really awesome just to be able to draw cards off this card's effect while also getting combo pieces out of your opponent's graveyard. We then play three copies of Ancient Warrior Rebellious. This card is a great boss monster for the deck and super easy to summon because it has the ability, it cannot be normal summoned or set, it must be special summoned from your hand by controlling the highest attack Ancient Warrior monster on the field, even if it's a tie, and you can only special summon this card once per turn this way. And once per turn, during the main phase, quick effect, you can destroy the one face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, your choice if it's a tie. And also you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn except for Ancient Warrior monsters. And then once per turn during the end phase, if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field, even if it's a tie, you have to give control of this card to your opponent, always playing for the winning side, which is really interesting about this card. We then play a single copy of Ancient Warrior Ambitious. This card is a great one-of boss monster in the deck that's pretty easy to summon, and it's just a really good card that while you control another Ancient Warrior monster, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects either. You can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn, that if a card your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can send one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your field and defense position, which is really good to be able to make all sorts of really insane plays depending on what you get from your opponent, which is really cool. We then play three copies of Ancient Warrior Loyal. This card is basically the Pankratops of the deck because it has the ability that if only your opponent controls a monster, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and your opponent cannot target other Ancient Warrior monsters you control with card effects. And if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, then you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it, which is a really awesome effect for this card to have, that you can just special summon this card to your side of the field as a 2500 attack point, essentially Cyber Dragon, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Ancient Warrior Valiant. This card is really good and one of my favorite cards in the entire deck. It has the ability to gain 300 attack points for each monster that your opponent controls, and then during your turn only. And you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. If you control two or more Ancient Warrior monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can activate this effect that this card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, which is really good to be able to attack multiple times with this 2700 attack point monster. We then play a single copy of Ancient Warrior Fearsome. This card is just a good one-of in the deck that all their Ancient Warrior monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. At the start of the damage step, when your Ancient Warrior monster battles an opponent's face-up monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, that opponent's monster loses 1000 attack points, which is really good just to get this card on your side of the field and help you go through some of your opponent's powerful monsters. And if a card your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it, which gives you an additional pop, which is really, really good. We then play three copies of Ancient Warriors Masterful. This card is a great 3-of normal summon for the deck. It has the ability that while you control another Ancient Warrior monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. You only use each of the following effects this card once per turn, that you can send one card from your hand or field to the graveyard to add an Ancient Warrior monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. And if your other Ancient Warrior monster's effect is activated except during the damage step, then you can target one monster opponent controls and return to the hand, which comes in very handy, especially combo with cards like Gamma Seal, to be able to tribute an opponent's monster with the Kaiju, and then use this card to bounce that Kaiju back to your hand to use over and over again, which is really awesome. We then play a single copy of the Graceful Ancient Warrior. This card is a really good 1-of in the deck that has the ability that you can target a continuous spell or trap card that you control and send to the graveyard, and if you get to add an Ancient Warrior spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And if your other Ancient Warrior monster effect is activated except during the damage step, you can target an effect monster opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. And you only use each effects of this card once per turn. But this card is really good because it's a level 4 water monster to be able to go into cards like Bahamut Shark, so you can make Totally Awesome, which is really, really good for the deck to be able to make that really awesome negate for this particular build. We're then playing 3 copies of Ancient Warriors Victorious. This card is a great 3-up for the deck that has the ability that while you control another Ancient Warrior monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks, and you only use each effect of this card once per turn, that if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can send one card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon an Ancient Warrior monster from your deck, except another copy of this card, and when an attack is declared involving an Ancient Warrior monster you control, you can draw a card, which is really good to be able to just get more cards into your hand. We then play 2 copies of Ancient Warrior Ingenious. This card is a great 2-of in the deck. It has the ability, if this card is added from your deck to your hand, by the effect of an Ancient Warrior card, you can special summon this card, which helps out going into all sorts of different link plays and going into XZ plays. And it also has the ability that when a spell or trap card is activated, quick effect, you can send one face-up Ancient Warrior continuous spell card you control to the graveyard to negate the activation, which is a really good effect that this card is also a walking gate. And when a monster effect is activated while you control an Ancient Warrior Victorious, which is this card, which is really cool, you have the ability to quick effect send one face-up Ancient Warrior's continuous spell or trap you control to the graveyard and negate the activation. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. This card is really good because it's super easy to search it, but you really only want 2 copies of this card because you don't want to draw into it, you want to search it so you can special summon it. We then play 3 copies of Gamma Seal so we can tribute the opponent's monsters and bounce it back with Masterful, which is really, really cool. And then 3 copies of Ash Blossom, basically just to stop the opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. We play a lot of monsters in this deck. So for these spells, we're going to be playing some really, really amazing spells, starting out with 2 copies of Fire Formation Tinky. This card is really good in the deck because all of our Ancient Warrior monsters are Beast Warriors, so it's very easy to search our level 4 lower Beast Warrior monsters with this card. We then play a single copy of Ancient Warrior Saga, Bowing of Arrows. This card is a good 1-of in the deck that has the ability you can target one face of monster opponent controls and an Ancient Warrior monster that you control, and until the end phase this turn, you half your opponent's monster's attack, and if you do, the lost attack is added to your Ancient Warrior monster, which is really good to help you get over some extremely powerful monsters and also OTK the opponent. And this card also has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard, while you control an Ancient Warrior monster with 2 or more different attributes, then you can place one Ancient Warrior's continuous spell card from your hand or deck face up in your field or on the field, which is a really good effect to be able to get to any of your cards as long as you control 2 different attributes on your side of the field. We then play just a single copy of Ancient Warrior Saga, East by South Winds. I feel like a single copy of this card is totally fine now with all of the insane support that we got out of Dimension Force, but this card is still a really good 1-of that you must send this card to the graveyard during the second standby phase after activation. Then once per turn during your main phase, you toss a coin, and if the result is heads, you send this card to the graveyard. And if this card is sent from the spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, you can activate this effect that this turn your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Ancient Warrior cards and effects. And also, until the end of the turn, and all Ancient Warrior monsters you currently control gain the effect that when this card, or when they declare attacks, you can destroy one card your opponent controls, which helps you go in for OTKs, but it's super easy to search this card, which is why I've bumped it down to 1. We're then playing 3 copies of Ancient Warrior Saga 3 Visits. 3 Visits is a really good 3-of in the deck, and it's just a really good card overall. It has the ability that during your main phase, if you normal or special summon an Ancient Warrior monsters, then you can target one of those monsters and add an Ancient Warrior monster with a different name from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent from the spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Warrior monster from your hand, and you can only use each effect this card once per turn. And you can send this card to the graveyard during your second standby phase after activation. And we then play 3 copies of the new Ancient Warrior Saga, Deception and Betrayal. This card is absolutely insane in the deck and super good and exactly what the deck needed. That during your main phase, you can special summon an Ancient Warrior monster from your hand, and if you take damage equal to that monster's level times 100, which is not that big of a deal, especially when we're getting an extremely powerful boss monster on our side of the field. Then you can send this card from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, and target an Ancient Warrior monster on the field and change its attribute. And then, if you target it in an opponent's monster, then you can take control of it, and you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. This card is really good, and it's just a great card in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance because we don't really need the extra deck, so being able to banish 6 to be able to draw 2 is really good in this build. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Ancient Warrior Saga Defense. This card is a really good one-of in the deck and super easy to search, that if your Ancient Warrior monster battles, your opponent going to activate any spell or trap cards until the end of the damage step, and you can only use one of the following effects this card per turn. That at the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can send this card from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, and monsters your opponent control cannot target Ancient Warrior monsters for attacks this turn. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon an Ancient Warrior monster from the deck. So this card is a great one-of to be able to either get in the graveyard to get another Ancient Warrior on the field, or use its effect to protect your Ancient Warriors on the field. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Ancient Warrior's Oath Double Dragon Lord. This card is a great 3-of in the deck, and just an overall fantastic card that it just takes 2 Beast War monsters, including a Wind Ancient Warrior monster. And all Ancient Warrior monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense, and you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. If this card is link summon, you can add an Ancient Warrior card from your deck to your hand. In quick effect, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and then target a face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the hand, which combos again very well with your cards like Gamma Seal to be able to use Gamma Seal over and over again. We then play a single copy of Access Code Talker just to give us additional pops on the field. This card is a really good one-of in here, especially with all the different attributes we're playing, but if we banish it, it's not that bad off of Extravagance. We then play a single copy of Shirog. Shirog is a good one-of because it works with all of our Beast Warrior monsters, and it's just an overall great card. We then play a single copy of Unicorn to spin stuff, Phoenix to pop spells and traps, and IP Masquerena to be able to go into Unicorn during the opponent's turn. 1 copy of the Tri-Brigade Barren Blossom. This card is just a really good card to combo with the deck to be able to use the ability that during your main phase you can special summon a level 4 or lower Beast Warrior monster from your hand, which combos extremely well in this deck. We then play a single copy of Abyss Dweller to be able to lock down the opponent's graveyard, and also use the ability that while this card is a material that's originally water, all water monsters you control gain 500 attack, which is really good. We then play 2 copies of Bahamut Shark because it's super easy to make this card, and then 2 copies of Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome is really good in the deck to be able to use this card to be able to give you that additional negate. And finally, a single copy of Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is really good to be able to use this card to completely board wipe the field, which helps you go in for game. But Toad is really good to give you the negate, and it's super easy to make by just using Bahamut Shark's ability to detach a material and summon Toad. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really awesome deck. If you guys have never played Ancient Warriors, you definitely should, because the majority of the cards are very budget in this deck, which is really cool, and it's super fun to be able to play because you're basically just throwing a bunch of monsters on your side of the field and going in for game. So that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.